Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Alea Lovely, who's here to share with us her new book, Meaningful Manifestation. So have you been looking for a way to fall in love with your life again? Well, today's guest is going to share with us how to do just that. So, Alea Lovely is a spiritual advisor, mindset coach, author, and philosopher who established herself as a leading voice in the field of spiritual guidance. With over 7 years of experience as an intuitive and energy coach, she has helped thousands of individuals reconnect with their authentic self through her unique blend of spiritual insight and practical coaching. Her podcast earned the #1 spot on iTunes in America, where she shares her wisdom with a global audience, exploring topics that bridge the gap between spirituality and everyday life. So welcome to the show, Alea Lovely.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. So what inspired you to write this?
So, meaningful manifestation is so near and dear to my heart because when my aunt passed away suddenly a few years ago, all I could ask myself was, did she live a good life? And since I work in the spiritual space, I am a medium, I do psychic work and, do spiritual coaching. I was thinking about how we talk about manifestation and how, The Secret, came on the scene, 10, 15 years ago or so. And we were talking a lot about the law of attraction. And I was thinking deeply about when we do talk about manifestation, we're often talking about acquiring things. It's like, "Oh, how can I get the yacht or 1,000,000 followers?" Or, those kinds of things, but ultimately, how those things don't seem to really make us happy. And so when I thought about it, I was like, I don't need to have the best life, but what would it mean for me to have a good life? I've done a lot of studies in NDE work, near-death experiences, and when people are at the end of their life, looking at the research and seeing what did they regret? When they were going through and thinking about their life, they weren't like, "Oh, I wish I worked more," or "I wish I had that car instead." They often would talk about their loved ones, and "I wish I spent more time with them. I wish I told them how I really felt," or "I wish I got to be more authentic in the things that I really enjoyed instead of what my parents wanted for me," etc. And so that really hit home for me in this kind of pivot in the way that we think about manifestation, the way that we even think about our life. Unfortunately, in our Western world, it's so much of let's go, go, go. Like, what can we do next? What's the next project you're working on? What do you do? And less about like internally, what actually makes me happy. And so in 2020, I had this really crazy year where all the things I'd been trying to manifest for upwards of 15 years all kind of happened in a 6-month span of time. I met my magical and beautiful best friend of a partner. I got pregnant when doctors said that I never would be able to without assistance. I was able to buy a house on card reading money. And my job, my podcast took off. I have a spiritual podcast. It took off in a really big way. And suddenly I was making more money than I knew what to do with. And I was just so in awe of like how quickly it all kind of turned a corner. But at the same time, upon getting all these things, I didn't necessarily feel happy. And wondering about that and going, wow, like all of the things that I've been trying to acquire up to this point in my life, almost 40 years old, and now I have all of them and I'm stressed. I have, a lot of more responsibilities. This house is too big. I can't, clean it all. My child is, crying for me and there's all these responsibilities. And so to me, I think manifestation is a way that we help ourselves level up as souls. It's not to necessarily acquire something, but it's for us to know ourselves, that the process of manifestation allows us to really know who we are.
What a powerful piece that is, because you're right. When most people manifest, work on manifesting things, it is the yacht, the boyfriend, the house, whatever that thing is, more
Mm,
money, whatever that physical, thing is, as opposed to maybe greater inner peace or
right,
happiness.
right. And so it kind of it spilled out into this thing where I was like, all right, well, so what are my top 5 maxims? And maxims are what I consider your values. Like, what are the top 5 negotiable categories in your life that you would like to have in order to have a good life? And, to give some examples, that could be a romantic partner, that could be time with your family, that could be financial security, that could be, creative passions achieved, or, travel, or, something like that. So if I didn't have these 5 things in my life, then maybe I would feel regret at the end of my life. But if I have these 5 things, then I'm good. And so essentially asking people to kind of ask themselves, what's really meaningful and important to you at the end of the day. Search your heart and recognize what are your authentic desires versus your inauthentic desires. And our authentic desires are the ones that really come from us, that really are something deep within us, that our intuition tells us this is something that our soul needs, wants, and would enjoy in order to grow and evolve. And then there are inauthentic desires, which is what society says we need, how we need to show up, like the comparison game. You need to make more money, or wear these clothes, or be in these clubs, whatever the thing is, in order for us to feel like we're catching up, or that we're in alignment with everybody else. And that to me just really doesn't matter. um, so then we go into the Imagine method. And so I was on a road trip, and it came to me actually in a channel. Like, it just wasn't like a download all at once. And I call it the Imagine method because it's an acronym for the steps in this process, which number one is inception. Where are you starting from? And I think this is an important question to ask, because when people are thinking about where they're starting from, we often look at other people's lives and compare where they're at versus where we're at. And we don't get to see their process and how they arrive there. We don't get to see the hard work that they did. We don't also get to see a lot of the privilege that they might have, or the privilege that they don't have. And so if, Marianne, me and you are trying to get to LA, and you live on the East Coast and I live in the Midwest, I'm going to get there before you. So, are you going to pout and be like, "Ah, she beat me there," when I started in front of where you were at? And so sometimes that's a process for us to look at, so that way we're not comparing ourselves to someone else's journey. And that moves into M, which is manifestation. What do you want? And I can't tell you how many clients I meet with that I have to ask that question. They're like, I don't actually know what I want. And I was like, okay, well, then the universe doesn't really know what direction to go in, or what to give you. And so being able to ask yourself that question in alignment with those 5 maxims that you've made means that you're not wasting time on arbitrary things that don't actually matter to you and that won't actually mean anything to you in the end. And so then we get into the A, which is anti-belief. What is the belief challenging that what you want? So I would like to have this, but I can't because. I'd like to lose, 20 pounds, but I can't because I have an issue with my hormones. Or I'd like to, win $1 million, but I can't because whatever the thing is, right? And the anti belief is really important, because sometimes the anti belief is true. I would like to do X, but there are systems in place in our world that don't allow me to. And so I have to find a different way. There are very real anti beliefs that exist that may be blocking you from the manifestation you're trying to draw in. However, for the majority of them, it's not. It's a perception, it's a narrative in some way that's serving you. Sometimes those anti beliefs are, helping us continue in our fear. Sometimes we need more courage to overcome some of those things, and that anti belief stands in the way to keep us from hope or disappointment or vulnerability. And so it gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves and really say, okay, is this something that I want to confront, or is this the story I'm telling myself? So then that leads us into G, which is growth. What change needs to happen in order to get what you want? And that process is always ongoing, because growth is forever. You're always evolving, always needing to change. And what changes need to happen in order to do that? And it's an observation process. Like being able to look and say, okay, is that something that's doable for me? And if it's not, being able to accept where you're at until you're ready to do so. Because I think a lot of times we guilt ourselves for not being ready for the growth that awaits us. And sometimes we can't rush that process. Sometimes it does take a little bit longer for us to gear up and get ready, or have a few steps in place in order to get to that growth spot, which leads us then to I, which is integration. How do you apply that change to your life? And so, like, in this way, what change needs to happen to get you there is growth, but how do you apply it is a different process as well. So, and this is like, to me, I'm getting very like persnickety when with this process, because how do you apply that change to your life can be in a multitude of ways. But the integration process is when that aha moment goes on in your brain. So to give you a small story, and this is a slight trigger warning for those of you listening, but when I was in college, I had had an SA experience. And this experience told me that it was not okay for me to be in an attractive body because then I would be looked on by other men and I would then be positioned in a place that would put me in danger. And so after this experience happened when I was in college, I immediately put on, a bunch of weight. And that was my brain's way of protecting myself. But when I'm going through the process of always saying, oh, I want to lose weight, I want to be slimmer, I want to do this, I want to do that, instead of being able to acknowledge that my brain's highest maxim was safety, instead I was hating on myself and telling myself I didn't, belong, or I didn't, I wasn't disciplined, or I didn't have enough, wherewithal to be able to get to my goals. What was wrong with me? And the integration process was being able to look at that young girl at 18 years old and say, this was your coping mechanism. You did the best with what you could at the time to help protect yourself. And safety was actually your highest maxim, not fitting into a size 6. And so the integration process for me at 40 years old is going, okay, I don't need to ever be a size 6. Instead, I would like to be able to leg press 550 pounds, which I can now, and feel very good about that. And it's like, okay, it's more important for me to be strong. So even in that, I was able to adjust my maxims to what's actually going to make me feel good or happy in my life. And that to me is extraordinary growth. So that then brings us into the end, which is noticing. This is observing the signs and syncs that help you produce more of it. I think the universe gives us little signs and little winks when we are on the path to show us like, hey, you're going in the right direction, whether that be a bunch of angel numbers or someone noticing your progress. It's telling you, keep going. You're almost there. You're getting close to the thing that you want. And that brings us into E, which is expansion. And expansion is you getting the manifestation, but what do you do once you have the thing that you wanted? Like when you realize your manifestation, I don't think a lot of people talk about that. You get to the place where it's like, all right, I have the house, I have the kid, I have the husband, and like these are all wonderful things and they've improved my life greatly, but they have leveled me up in a way. And sometimes people aren't ready for that, or they're not aware that that's what happens and the process starts all over again. So they find themselves in places where they're having to refine their ask. You ever like really wanted something and then got it and you were like, oh, that's not what I wanted. Like, oh man, I'm really hungry for this particular thing. And you taste it and you're like, oh, that's not what I wanted. I want to order something else. Like the universe, we have that happens in our life very often where we are eating from the plate of the universe and going, ugh, actually wasn't in the mood for this. I'd actually prefer this instead. I'd like to try this next time. And you start the process all over again.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Alea Lovely in regards to her new book, Meaningful Manifestation. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Alea Lovely, who's here sharing with us her new book, Meaningful Manifestation. Earlier, you brought up a really good point about us manifesting, and a lot of times when we manifest things, we're not exactly sure if that's what we really want. And then when we obtain it, how do people then pivot and start manifesting something new?
Yeah. It's to me, it's a really beautiful process because it really tells us who we are. It tells us like what we actually want, like what we want from this life. And it to me addresses meaning because at the end of the day, for me, I started going, wow, like I'm not finding a lot of fulfillment in the things that I'm asking for. I need to be asking from a deeper space. Like I want more peace in my day-to-day life. I want better relationships. I want to be able to connect to my spiritual side more often. That gives me more peace. Like I want quietness. I don't need a ton of friends. I need quality friends, I don't need more clothes. I need to have less, clutter in my house. Like being able to refine that ask, getting to the end of like, okay, I've expanded and I've gotten these things. And these are wonderful things, by the way. I'm not saying that people shouldn't want the things that they want, but when you get to the end of it and you're like, I finally accomplished that thing, what does it tell you about yourself?
Ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one. What is one of the things that people come to see you for the most? Is it that manifesting that deeper connection with their spirit guides and the other side, or is it being able to really bring in greater inner peace? What is it?
Yeah, so I see them for, kind of all of those things, but I think that my most important message and most important mission is to help empower people in themselves. I'm not here to tell you what you want. I'm here to help you show the path for how you find that yourself. I grew up in a very religious context where I was told often, "You don't know anything. You're just a sinner. You're just this. You're just that." And in a lot of ways, felt my power being taken away. And I'm a woman of color in this Western world, so there were a lot of areas where I felt disempowered. And I feel so, so, so strongly about giving people their power back. Even though I have these connections to the other side, I think you do as well. Most people do. Most people have that connection, but they've been told, that they have to grow their intuition when in fact their intuition is their birthright, in my opinion. It's that we've been told and programmed with so many things over our lifetime that's told us that we don't know what's best for us, that we don't know what we actually want, or we don't know anything, like that we're wrong about the decisions we made for our life and so on. Like to me, it's the peeling back the layers. That is the work that I do. I help you peel back the layers to hear your inner voice, what's in your heart, what is your authentic desire, what your authentic voice is saying. So that way you will never be duped or swayed by anyone else in your life again, that you have the strongest ability to be able to know what's best for you. And when someone says, "Nuh-uh, I don't think you should do that," like you're not swayed by that.
Yes, it's interesting. I've met many CEOs and VPs who have accomplished whatever it is they're looking to accomplish, and they're bored with life. You could
Mhm.
tell they're so unfulfilled and just at a place where they really think that they've plateaued. And so it's so empowering to have meaningful manifestations available because and the work that you do, because we're really asking people to take a deeper dive into what is important in life.
Mhm. Exactly. And I think sometimes, I mean, I think we do try that often, but we are so distracted in our world. Everything's glitz and glam and Pinterest and Instagram and TikTok, and we're often looking, observing, and consuming a lot of content telling us that we're not enough, that we need to acquire more, and that keeps us on, the hamster wheel. And when we get to the end of it and we've achieved all of it, like all of those things ultimately do not have the deeper meaning that actually makes us happy. Happiness is an inside job. And unfortunately, we've attached the emotion of happiness to things, to external things, when in fact it's a state of being. It's a looking within, it's a knowing of self, it's an empowering of your own voice, it's knowing your heart, it's connecting with people, loving yourself, like those things. And being able to find those in the manifestations. I think that like we learn a lot of those things through the process of acquiring things. So I think it does play a role, but it's not the whole kit and caboodle. Like, unfortunately, we get to the end and we have to find out the hard way after all of our hard work that, oh, this isn't it.
Well, coming to that realization, and I think it was kind of like, such an aha moment when you said it, is that intuition is our birthright. For folks that maybe are having a tough time connecting with their intuition or trusting it, what advice do you give them?
I think that it's really helpful to look at our inner child and look at the age when we think that our power was taken away from us. At what age did you feel like you didn't know anything? Or that you were telling your parents something or your teachers or whomever, and they were saying, that's not how it is, or, like discrediting that or gaslighting that. It happened very early for me where I just didn't feel listened to. I didn't feel seen. And so we start participating in the systems that, look like most acclimate for us, like that look like, okay, this is how I'm able to get my voice heard by being a good girl, by behaving, by showing up in this way. This is how by being pretty and being small. This is how I get the attention that I need to let myself be seen. And it can be, unfortunately, really damaging to our inner voice. Our inner voice is saying, this doesn't feel right, or this is not on my compass, like this is not my North Star. And so I think that being able to acknowledge that younger child, that younger version of ourself, and give, at least for me, that was my process of being able to say, okay, like I've been told almost my whole life that I don't know anything, that I'm stupid, that I don't have access to the divine. Why? Like, why is that? And me being able to ask those questions helped me start to peel that onion away. I do also think that meditation helps, but I know a lot of people struggle with being able to meditate because like they're not able to like really sit still. And so what I started to do is like when I meditate, instead of, sitting in a dark room and trying to be quiet, I journal. Like I sit down and I ask a question and then I just write like whatever comes to mind. And if I can't think of anything, I wrote duck duck goose until something came to mind. And then I could start to slowly hear this really soft, beautiful voice that came through that was starting to give me guidance that did not sound like me, because my voice often at the time sounded anxious. And a lot of times people have a hard time telling the difference between anxiety and intuition. And anxiety is always like, what if this happens? And there's a fear presented, or what if you do this? And da, 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 it's the fear driving. And when intuition comes in, it's love driving. It's like, it's a soft nudge. It's a suggestion. It's caring. It's loving. But it's quiet. So it does take time to cultivate a relationship with that inner voice, to give it space to come out and start to be loud.
As people are walking the meaningful manifestation path, what tips would you give them as they're on the path to self discovery?
I'd say take your time. This is not something that you do overnight. You're not going to get through this book and immediately be like, all right, I know what to do. It is an ongoing process, particularly the last half of, the growth, the integration, the noticing, and the expansion. We need to give ourselves space to grow and evolve. And sometimes it takes years. I think we're often in a hurry to evolve and get to the end and be like, I figured it out and now I'm better. But unfortunately, I guess, our life evolution is a process. It is a journey. It is not a destination. So my biggest advice is take your time. It takes as long as it takes. With my journey, like I was talking about with my, my body image, I am still on that journey of loving myself, still giving myself love, still saying, like, telling myself, you know what? The way that I look is the least important aspect about me. Like, I have so much more to offer people than what I look like. And so I'm still in the process of like peeling off those onion layers of what I've been told or what society has told me or whatever. So, it takes time, giving yourself that grace to allow yourself to walk there, because sprinting there is going to make you miss a few steps and you're going to have to go backwards.
What would you like our readers and listeners to take away from Meaningful Manifestation?
I hope that they would take away a more authentic version of the life they'd like to live, that they would stop pressuring themselves with their biological clocks or what society says you need to be doing by a certain age. I have so many clients that are like, I'm behind. And I'm like, you're 27. You got like so much time. You're all right. I hope that they're giving themselves more grace to know themselves and that they come away with just more acceptance for who they are as people, that they come away with more self-awareness of what they actually want in their life, and that they have the courage to say no to the things that they don't, that they give themselves more time and space to be more loving and kind to themselves as they discover who they are, and be able to kind of start to shed any paradigms of what people told them they should be or should have.
Now, do you work with people that are looking to just spiritually evolve?
Absolutely. Yeah. I do coaching, I do astrology, I do card readings, I connect with people's loved ones and spirit guides on the other side.
So, where can people go to learn more about your work and to be part of your community?
They can go to thelovelyalia.com, thelovelyalia.com. You can find my services there. You can buy my book there. I also hang out on Instagram at thelovelyalia as well. Please join my email list. That's the best way to find out what we're doing and get our announcements out.
Well, Alea, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Alea. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Meaningful Manifestation. Meaningful Manifestation's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere books are sold. And remember, support our indie bookstores. You can also purchase this book directly from the publisher at Hay House at hayhouse.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.